Hey everyone, welcome to New Slang. I am Thomas Mooney, your host, and you are listening to episode 88, where I speak with Willy Braun of Reckless Kelly. At the end of this week, Friday, May 22nd, Reckless is doing something for the first time in their nearly 25-year career. They are releasing a double album, or rather, two individual albums simultaneously. It's kind of one of those situations where it's both and neither at the same time. At any rate, they are releasing American Jackpot, American Girls on May 22nd. It's 20 songs total, and while I could easily see either album doing well enough individually, it's a statement piece in a sense. The individual pieces are more than fine, the individual songs are incredible, but you gain so much more context and nuance when you throw them all together. They gain strength with every additional piece that's added. You get like another piece of that puzzle. I've always kind of thought of albums that went in that 12 to 13 to 17 to 18 range. They were kind of like in this no man's land. I always thought that those albums should have been cut down to either 10 songs or gotten up to 20 songs. And regardless of your choice, it just became a stronger collection for it. I'm not really sure why, but something really happens at that 20 song mark. It's almost like you're saying that whatever theme that you have decided to ride on, to explore, that theme is important and it demands your focus and attention. And Reckless Kelly really does that here with these two albums. So here they're able to deliver these beautiful odes to people like Jackie Robinson and baseball and Tom Petty and the Grand Canyon and rock and roll music and just the North American landscapes in general. I think that's an essential aspect of this album. Let's just take a moment to talk about these things that are as essential to what America is as apple pie. And that's not just a limit to lyrical space. Sonically, they've been able to really stretch their legs too. There's of course these Tom Petty and Springsteen elements, but there's also these moments where they channel Tex-Mex and old school kind of desert Marty Robbins Western balladry. And then one of my favorite elements is this bedrock of like these dreamy guitars that really kind of evoke that fading dream / memory space. There's a lot of timely pedal steel that's just really bright and warm, and there's some really atmospheric elements that just kind of set the tone. And obviously at 20 songs long, Reckless Kelly is able to take their time and give that proper attention to detail. It's something that I talk about often. It's what happens here is it's a moment. It's an event of sorts. You aren't just having these two collections of 10 songs each. Rather, you're getting 20 individual pieces of a fabric that make up this larger concept. Anyway, Willy and I talk about the new records and songwriting in general, so let's just go ahead and get on to the interview. But before, as always, if this is your first time listening to New Slang, I strongly urge you to hit that subscribe button. Go give the Facebook page a like. Follow me at _New Slang on Twitter and Instagram. Also, I haven't mentioned this in a minute, but I still do have some New Slang stickers, the Quanah Parker Panhandle Music ones, and I should be getting some new koozies in soon. I'll let you know when they are available to order. Okay, here is Willy Braun of Reckless Kelly. Yeah, I guess like we should probably start on, you're releasing two records here, a double record. What I guess like what's the are you guys kind of what are you looking at it as, a two records or a double album?
Man, that's an interesting question because I've kind of been looking at it as two records because it's sort of a long story. We started making one record, and then it's the first time I've ever produced an album for the band by myself without anybody else. So I kind of wanted to make sure I had a lot of time in the studio. So I booked too much time. We rocked through like the entire record in, I don't know, probably 10 or 12 days. And I still had like 3 or 4 or 5 days in the studio that was booked. So I decided to just start throwing some songs out there that weren't necessarily going to make the record. And they all turned out really good. They didn't have anything to do with the original concept. It was all just, a batch of tunes. And we mastered the album, and it was like ready to go. And then I just started thinking, man, if we recorded like 4 more songs, we could make this a double release. the original concept remaining intact, and then another 10 songs about basically just about girls and relationships. So it went from being North American Jackpot was the original title to being American Jackpot and American Girls. And so there's two separate records, two separate concepts. There's two different album covers and the whole 9 yards, but you can't get them separately. Like, we're selling them as a package thing if you actually do buy them, or if you download them. They come as one unit. So I consider it two records, but I don't know. It's hard to say because it kind of is one album, because you really can't get one without the other.
Yeah, like companion or twin records. I don't know. Sister, brother, sister. I don't know, something like that.
And that's been done before, like we're not breaking any ground here, but it was just kind of one of those things where the extra tunes we had were good enough, and like the versions we had were really cool, and they had this kind of same cohesive sound as the other record. So I didn't want to just save them for later or not use them. So that's kind of where the whole thing evolved into two records instead of just one.
Right. Like this, I guess, like, was this like one of those things where you came in to do a record where you just had more songs, or do you typically, when you're about to cut a record, have 20-ish songs to pick from?
Yeah, I always have way more songs than we think we're going to need, but we usually narrow it down beforehand. Like when I'm writing for a record, I'll probably write, at least for the last several albums we've made, I'll write 30 songs or 40 songs and narrow it down to 10 or 12. But we usually narrow it down pretty good before we ever get to the studio. And this time we had the record cut, and I had a bunch of extra leftover songs, and some of them weren't even finished. Like, I wrote a couple like while we were still in the studio, just really trying to kill time because I had booked too much time in the studio. That's kind of where the whole thing started. But I always have more songs than we need, and my goal is usually to just, when I start writing for a record, I'll write when I get a good song that I think is a good enough song to put on a record, the first one, my goal is always to beat that 10 times, and that song doesn't even make the record, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. It is interesting to see how different songwriters will not just approach songwriting, but like how they you kind of go through different grooves. Do you feel like whenever you hit that first one right there, that one that you're like, oh, this is a record song, do you feel like you fall into a groove after that point, or is it a lot less? Is it more sporadic than that?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, sometimes when I write a good song, I usually kind of it'll spark some creativity, but I don't know if it's necessarily always the first one or how long that streak's going to last, but it definitely goes in streaks for me. I write most of my stuff up here in Idaho out at my place, and I find that usually when I'm up here for a few days and kind of just wind down, and then when I start writing, it usually goes pretty well as long as I have some ideas stashed up, because what I usually do is I'll just, if I have an idea for a song or a hook or a line or a melody, I write them down or throw a little voice demo down of just, the chorus or whatever line it is, and then take all those and I just stockpile them until I can get out here and actually work on them. So usually I'll come up here with a big pile of ideas. So I have a lot of places to start from. And then once that creative kind of vibe starts rolling, then usually I can knock out a bunch in a week or so. And I'll just keep coming back up and doing that for a week or so at a time until I have enough songs to make a record and enough what I feel like are really good songs anymore. Like, I used to make records back in the old days. I could write 10 or 12 songs and we'd go make a record. And now I try to just have a bunch of throwaways, because you can always improve on songs, and I nitpick them a lot more than I used to. So I spend a lot more time on the songwriting aspect of this whole thing than I did back when I was a kid.
Yeah, it's I feel like everyone kind of does that when you first start out doing anything. You're like, yeah, I got 10 of these. Let's go, and this is a record, you know.
Yeah, and also, like, man, back in the day, those 10 songs were actually probably pretty good because you were still just exploring the whole thing and using those are your best 10 ideas that you had up until the point when you started writing songs. So they were probably pretty good ideas, you know, for a lot of guys. And I'm not even sure if that's true in my case, but it was a lot easier to write a record when I was 20 years old than it is now.
Right. I do always wonder if like it's one of those things where you get better at crafting a song, you get better at putting everything together, but as time goes by, the ideas slow down just simply because like in some cases you just when you start out being doing anything like you sometimes you just don't know any better on how to you know what I mean, so maybe like
Yeah.
early on, you know, those stories, the well is easy to define, but then as time goes by, you just get better at putting those songs together.
Yeah, for sure. And I also like, I always kind of pinpoint when I started really trying to, I hate to use the word craft, but that's what the word comes to mind is like when you start really trying to nitpick all your songs and every line and every chord and all that. I didn't really do that when I was younger. I just wrote a song and then that was it. But we made a couple records with Ray Kennedy up in Nashville, and I had a batch of tunes that I think were pretty good, and you know, 6 or 7 of them were ready to go. And there was another half a dozen that Ray was like, "Man, these are really close, but you know, that first verse doesn't fit the rest of the song, or that line sucks, or you know, we need a bridge, or you need to go back and tweak these things as a whole and start really, really nitpicking them and fine tuning them." And that's when I started doing that. And that was also the first time when I didn't just write 10 or 12 songs and say, that's it, that's the record. He was like, no, you need to write 10 more and we're going to throw 10 away. And I was like, I thought it was nuts when I first heard that. But then we made probably to date at that point, like the best record we'd ever made. And I was like, okay, that's how I'm going to do it from now on. So I'm going to write twice as many songs as I need at least. And I'm going to just tweak them until they're as good as they can get.
Yeah. Do you think it takes somebody to, I guess, maybe be a little bit hard on you to be able to like have that moment where you kind of go, oh yeah, I can do better than this, and this is a little bit, this is how it should be done.
It definitely did at that point. And like, I feel like now that we've been producing our own records and I did the last one for quite a few albums. So we don't have an outside producer, but I feel like I try to be just harder on myself, like I am my own producer or arranger in that aspect. But it definitely helps to have an outside opinion here and there. And I'm pretty bad about sharing my stuff with anybody until it's time to make the actual album. So I kind of let the band be the barometer on that. You know, when I play a song with the band or for the band the first time, or I send them a demo, it's pretty easy to tell which ones are the favorites right off the bat. Like guys will start chiming in, and they'll be like, "Oh man, that one's my favorite. Holy shit, that's a good song." Or if they don't say anything about a song, like nobody ever says, "Oh, I don't like that one. That was a piece of shit." But if they don't say anything, then that's my cue to know that that's probably not the one that's going to make the album. And my
Yeah.
brother Cody's got a really good ear, and he's really honest and really good about helping me with making those decisions when I have to decide between one song or the other. He's pretty good about kind of helping me make those calls.
Yeah. You mentioned, you know, you always go up to Idaho with the songs to really work on them up there. You get the ideas everywhere, but like going up there and uh, is that partly just because of you know just being able to get away from everything else, decompress? Is that part of like the reason or the most part?
It really is. It has a lot to do with the scenery up here is beautiful. It's kind of inspiring, but that's not really the main thing. It's more about, like you said, getting away from everything. My phone doesn't really work very well up here. I don't have internet. I'm not watching TV. People aren't knocking on my door for the most part. So there's not a lot of distractions, and that's always been the biggest thing for me. It's like, it doesn't matter where you are. It always seems like, right, you can sit there and try to write a song for a week and not have anything. But the second you get that spark of a song where it's starting to roll, 10 seconds later, somebody will knock on the door or the phone will ring or there'll be some distraction. And that to me is the biggest thing about being up here is I can just kind of shut the door and turn the phone off, and all of a sudden there's nothing to stop me from writing other than not being able to think of anything.
Yeah, I've always I know exactly what you're saying because um like this sounds crazy and you sound crazy saying this, but you know in The Shining when Jack is like being bothered by his wife and on just little simple stuff of like just coming in there and now of course he's going crazy and stuff at the same time, but you know bringing him a sandwich and stuff and it just breaks his concentration. I'm
Yeah.
like that is I don't go like that, but like it is like you have to like find yourself like you have to get like back in whatever groove it is, you know, and it sometimes it's a process of getting back to where you're that headspace because I think so much of it is, and of course I'm not writing songs, but it's getting back to that place in your mind.
That's a great analogy because, like, even though he's writing the most crazy shit during that, like, it's all work and no play makes Jack a very dull boy, and he just writes it thousands and thousands of times in a row. Like, even though he's just writing that, it's still breaking his concentration. And then at the same time, at the end, when you realize that's what he's written, that's what I always call the shoebox test, where it's, you know, every time I write a song or have an idea for something, I think it's brilliant. And then if you give it a week and look back at it, half the time you're just like, oh my God, what was I thinking?
Yeah, yeah, or like you um I've had like things where and this is like great whenever as a journalist with an editor is the you write something and you it makes sense to you right there in the moment because like you're in the middle of it, but then you send it to an editor and they're like what do you mean by this, like this is off, you
Right.
know. Is there has there I'm sure that's happened with you, like there's moments like that.
Yeah, I think producers are editors. Um, and then, like I was saying earlier, my brother Cody is really good at that too. He's just not really doesn't get really deep into stuff as far as like this line or this word or whatever. It's kind of it's more of a broad strokes thing where he'll tell me whether a song is good or not. But like I'm reading this. It's a book you've probably seen or probably read even. It's what's it called? The East of Eden letters. Steinbeck's journal he kept while he was writing East of Eden, and it's all just letters to his editor. And he talks about writing the book, and he goes through the entire process of writing, and he talks about the characters and how he's going to develop them, and then he talks about like, oh, I went to the store today, or I built a table, or it was so and so's birthday, and yada yada. So it's like just this kind of rambling thing. But he started every morning when he was writing that book with writing a letter to his editor, and that's what the book is. But the book comes back very differently than he sent it off. I mean, he's a genius, but it took a great editor to edit that thing down to what it ended up being. And so I think the editor can be as big, if not bigger than the writer in certain cases. And I kind of wish I had an editor sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. I I've had a couple of editor, I guess, moments where I'm like, this is what writing is actually like, and I don't know, like it. There's been some really great back and forth where you're developing a story, and it feels like I don't know, like it's like the romanticized aspect of like, oh, this is what you know newspapers back in the day had to feel like, you know, or like magazines or in the 50s or 60s or what, you know, there's just something really when it happens, you're like, holy shit, like this is amazing, you know. So I don't know. I think I need to check that out.
This episode is sponsored by Wicker's Mesquite Smoked Jalapeno Jelly. It's owned and operated by my buddy Wes Wicker, who makes the jelly in small batches for the best quality and freshness. He smokes the peppers with mesquite and uses pure cane sugar to make the jelly. What you get is this great blend of smoky, sweet, and spicy. It's addictively savory. For those uninitiated, Wicker's is a great addition to any chef's kitchen. Part of what makes Wicker's so great is just how versatile it really is. For starters, it makes a great meat glaze. Throw it on a batch of hot wings, use it on some pork ribs, some pork chops, really whatever you can think of. Eat it on biscuits, cornbread, bagels, or toast. Throw it on a ham or turkey sandwich. Another super simple but effective way is to get some cream cheese, throw some Wickers on top, and then grab your favorite cracker. Wickers is currently stocked at a handful of places in Lubbock and on the South Plains, as well as some Fort Worth and DFW locations. But the easiest way to get your hands on a jar is to head over to wickerstx.com. That's WICKERSTX.com. I'll throw a link into the show notes for good measure. They currently come in two varieties, original and now hot, if you need just a little bit more kick in your bite. You can order anything from 1 jar to a case of 12, whatever fits your needs. Again, that's wickerstx.com. Okay, back to the show.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess like the only letter book I've really ever gone into is like Hunter S. Thompson had like a collection of letters that he was, but it was just like letters to everybody, you know. So
yeah, it's not like a riveting great read. It's just interesting. Like I think East of Eden is just a brilliant book, you know, and I'd actually like to reread East of Eden while reading that other book, the letters, at the same time. I think it'd be pretty cool. But it's I don't know. I think about that when I think about editors and that kind of stuff, because sometimes they can help, and then other times, like, people give you a piece of advice and you're like, no, I'm going to go with my gut on this one. And I don't know, like Wicked Twisted Road, I wrote that song when I was pretty young, and I sent it to our A&R guy, and he didn't like it. And so we didn't put it on the record, but then I sent it to him again 2 years later, and he was like, that's the best song you've ever written. I was like, did you even goddamn listen to it the first time? And then we cut it, and even Ray Kennedy and the A&R guy were like, oh, it's a great song, but you can't start every verse with my first love was, you know, yada, yada. But how many first loves can you have? And I tried to actually rewrite it, and I just came back and I was like, guys, this is the way it is. This is the song. And that's kind of the whole point of the whole tune, was every verse starting with that line. And I wasn't trying to be a punk or anything, but I was just like, I really feel like this is the tune, you know? And not that those guys didn't know what they were talking about, because they're both really, really good at what they do, and I appreciated their input. But at the end of the day, it's become one of our most popular songs. And I'm glad I didn't change it, you know? So sometimes you got to go with your gut instead of letting somebody else tell you how to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, I think that the way every verse starts out with that, it creates like a rhythm, and that's, I don't know, there's something very essential to that song with that rhythm of that, just kind of like, I don't know, there is since obviously there's this aspect of it being a highway song, you know, like you kind of get that rhythm of the road.
Yeah, and I rewrote it a time or two, and it was just like it went nowhere. It was like this song sucks. Like, it took the whole entire soul out of the song. And I'm not saying those guys don't know what they're doing. You know, they're both brilliant songwriters and great producers, but it was a piece of advice that I chose to ignore, and I'm glad I did. You know, it's one of those deals where it's like every once in a while you have to just go with your gut.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, like the songs on this record, this upcoming one, you guys go into a lot of, you know, obviously, like you said, like the original title was North American Jackpot. It's now American Jackpot. A lot of these are American kind of songs, like life in the in the Americas, North America in particular. You know, you got like songs about Jackie Robinson and baseball, and like, one song that I really like in particular is "Grandpa Was a Jack of All Trades." Um,
Thanks.
at what point did you realize, like, that there's a little bit of a theme here, like, hey, these are all kind of American tales?
This is like the first time I've ever written a record where I had the theme in mind before I started writing it. I knew I wanted to write a song about America. Like before we did the split side of American Girls, it was all just going to be called North American Jackpot. But I definitely didn't want it to be super political, and I didn't want it to be like rah 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 America 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 type things. Like, but I wanted it to have things that reflected American stories. You know, like I'm glad you mentioned Grandpa was a jack of all trades, and the Jackie song. Because to me, like grandpa and baseball, two very American things, you know, like everybody has grandpas, but it's just like the old school American grandpa, for example, is like a great story about America without ever mentioning America or where he lived, you know. Same with the Jackie song. It's just a song about baseball. It's about a kid who wants to grow up to be like Jackie, and just kind of showcases how Jackie shaped that culture and changed the world by being the first black baseball player. And the kid in the story, I don't know if he's white or black or how old he was or what the time frame is. It's just kind of, we wanted to keep it kind of ambiguous as to just some kid who wanted to grow up to be like Jackie Robinson. And to me, that's where I really tried to lean on when I started writing for this record, was songs about America and American stories and people and places and all of that, without getting to the point where every song had to mention America or USA or that kind of thing. It was more just about the vibe.
Right. Yeah. I love like when songs also, they feel like a place, but the time is ambiguous. Like it's just like this, oh, it could work in 2020 or it could work in 1980 or 1950, whatever. I love when songs are able to, where you just really can't pinpoint down when it is, or maybe there's like this, like, I don't know, this lost year where they all kind of take place or something, you know.
I've always tried to keep that timelessness in my songs, like even like on the subconscious level. And I didn't really even realize I did that until, it's funny, I was writing one of the new tunes on, can't remember which record it's on, but it's one I wrote with Jeff Crosby, is Lonesome on My Own, which I think is on American Girls. But one of the first lines is, she looks happier now in her posts and her photographs. And that was one of his lines. And I was like, we can't say posts, because that alludes to the internet, and that takes it into a specific time frame. And we went back and forth on it, because I was like, I've never used like that modern terminology in any song. Like the most modern thing I think I'd used before that was like a payphone. But I wasn't really into using the term as in like an Instagram or a Facebook post.
Right.
Until I sat on it for a while, and I was like, you know what? It's where we're at, and it's become the new truck stop telephone of songs. So I was like, all right, well, let's go ahead and use post instead of changing it to postcard or something else that actually isn't even relevant anymore. So that's like, it was kind of a big deal for me to do that, because I'd never really wanted to be that specific with a time frame and it was something that modern. It's kind of weird, because I like classic stuff. I like old shit, you know. So I don't want my songs to sound new. I want them to sound like they've been around forever.
Yeah.
Even if they're 5 minutes old. Yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting to see like how, I guess like with Americana and country and like rock and roll kind of stuff, you almost never see the modern language. Like you will see turn of phrases that have like maybe a modern spin, but like almost never is it, because it just sounds, I don't know, like it sticks out sometimes. You know, like whenever you have a dream where, when you're in the dream it feels real, but then when you wake up you're like, oh, that's obviously was a dream. Sometimes like whenever you hear a song and has something about social media or something like that. Sometimes it'll just like stick out and it breaks you from the song for some reason, you know?
Yeah, and I wrote a song about social media 5 or 6 years ago that came out on, man, I guess it was on Sunset Motel, but it talked about social media the entire time, but never actually mentioned it. Like I used metaphors and I never said anything about posts or likes or anything like that. It's kind of obvious that that's what I'm talking about, but you have to break it down. Like, and I never really mentioned anything specifically because I had that wall up still, and I think I probably still do. Like it'll be probably a while before I write anything that has anything modern in it again. But it's funny that I don't know. It's just a weird little tick that I have. I can't wrap my head around writing anything that sounds like it was written yesterday. It has to sound like it was written 50 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. The one of the things I really liked. This is like about that record, but it's not even necessarily about the record. I liked the the motel keychains. That was like oh man, I've not thought about those keychains with like the number on them for a motel in such a long time. Since you obviously so many motels you just have that card that just swipes now. But I like that.
Yeah, that was I had the idea for the hidden messages and stuff. Like you take that and wave it over the record cover, and you can see all kinds of hidden messages because it blocks out the red dye. And it was kind of an idea I had from what's that old game, Password. But then the keychain idea, I think, was probably the Dodds probably came up with that actual idea to use the keychain. But our old buddy Pino Bennett used to have keychains that he sold at his merch table, and they were the motel keychain, and they were numbered, and like the true fans were like, "Oh, I got number 16. You know, what's your number?" And so they all had that keychain, and so like the number was like a big deal. It was like, "Oh shit, you're 105. Give me a break, man. I got number 6." And so I kind of stole that idea, and then I think the Dodds were the ones that came up with the idea to make that the red thing that changed all the messages to the new whatever you're looking for.
Yeah, that's funny, man. Like having the keychain with a lower number. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
it's like up here in Idaho. Like my license plate, it's eight. I don't know, it's 897 or something. I can't remember the actual number, but when I called to get my license plate up here, she was like, "What number do you want?" I was like, "What?" She was like, "You can pick whatever number you want." Because there's not a lot of people in this county, but I was just like, "Give me the lowest one you got," because I want that old school street cred.
Yeah, yeah. That's funny right there. You mentioned Jeff Crosby a minute ago. Obviously, he's from up there,
Yeah.
and he's he played with y'all for a while, and I know he was on. I did a podcast with him back in January, and we mentioned you in that. And I think he mentioned that you guys had been working on a couple of songs here and there. I guess like what was it like working with with Jeff as a writer on a couple of these songs?
Man, he's a great writer. He's one of my favorite writers these days. He played guitar with us for probably 3 or 4 months last year. We're going through the musical chairs of guitar players for the summer, and he was with us for quite a while. And I'd become a really big fan of his writing. And right when he started playing with us was when I was starting to kind of play with the idea of writing some more songs to do another record. And he had just gone through a breakup, so he had a bunch of great ideas. And he ended up with, I think, 5 cuts on between the 2 records. And I think 3 of them are the singles. So we wrote some pretty cool stuff. But he's just I love his phrasing. He's like, he can cram words into a verse that I could never do. Like I had to rewrite stuff after he left just so I could sing it the way I sing. But I wish he could have sang it because it's cooler the way he can somehow manage to just fit the words into a verse where like I'm like, man, I need like 25% less words, or I can't squeeze those in there.
Yeah. I call that
But
like
he's a
the
great writer, and he's
Springsteen
also
thing.
one. What's that?
I said I call that the Springsteen, like early Springsteen thing, where
Yeah,
just
he
able
does
to
the
like
same
cram
kind of
everything
thing.
in.
Yeah, I've never been able to do that. I've tried, and I'm just not good at it. But he's also he's always ready to write. Like if you're like, hey, you want to try to write a song tomorrow? Like you're writing tomorrow. Like most guys I know they'll talk all day long about how they want to get together and write, and you rarely ever actually get together and write. But Crosby's always ready to do it, even if you're just hanging out, partying, or doing whatever. If you're like, hey man, you want to grab a guitar and go write? He'll be like, hell yeah, let's do it. Like he's always ready to go write a song, which is probably the main reason we actually did a bunch of writing, because he was always just ready to do it, and we needed some songs. So it was cool. It definitely. I don't even know if I would have gotten the record finished in time if he hadn't been on the road with us.
Yeah, I always think like one of your the best, I guess, easiest skill set is availability. Obviously, if you're
Yeah.
available, you can get so much more done. And the opportunities happen. So it's a good thing.
There's so many people I've talked about writing with and never have, like guys I've known for 20 years, and we talk about writing all the time, and we've never written a single song. And we've had dates on the books, and for one reason or another, somebody or the other guy canceled, and and I'm just as guilty as the next guy. Wake up and be like, shit, I don't feel like writing today, or we got to drive all the way to New Braunfels. Well, let me think of something. Not have to go do this, but it's like shit. Yeah, that's a song killer. It's just laziness.
Yeah. What's funny too is I think this is with some songwriters, and I know is more than anything else, it's with journalists. It's I would rather talk about writing than writing. I would rather talk about. I've noticed that some songwriters would rather like talk about songs and talk about writing than actual writing.
Right.
It's
probably because it's a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Like if you
actual writing is hard. You got to sit down and tune your guitar and think of some shit. And boy, you can talk about songwriting all day long.
Yeah, if you notice, like journalists on Twitter will talk a whole lot more about the actual writing of journalism and all that kind of stuff than articles shared. I don't know.
I really don't know how you guys do it, because I always think about, like, when I write a song, it's such an easy formula, like you're going to have 2 verses and a chorus, or 3 verses and a chorus and a bridge, or some long ass story songs have 10 verses and no chorus or whatever. But once you start writing it, you get your pattern and you know where you're heading with it. And you have kind of a limited amount of words and sentences you can use within that frame. And it's got to be under 3 or 4 minutes, if it's going to be a pop song. So when I look at like journalism or people that write novels, like it blows my mind that somebody can write a book that's like 600 pages long, or even 200 pages, or an article that's 5 pages. Because it's like, man, I don't know really how you do it. It's very interesting, the difference between writing a song and writing an article or a book, I would think.
Yeah, I think for starters, like I know for me, I'm just a rambler, so I will just ramble on, and it's usually where it takes you knowing what to cut, and like
Right.
just knowing that, like, oh yeah, this little, and part of it goes back to that editor thing, but sometimes it's about, oh, this may be a little cool thing that you said about this, or this may be a little cool side story, but it just needs to be cut because it just has to,
Right.
It takes some patience and understanding. I don't know. You said, writers of novels and short stories and stuff like that. Now that is like, I think that takes, I don't know, that takes some guts to really do all of that, because that's hard work. I feel that's
That's
commitment.
got to be so tough. And just rereading it, that's where I'm always like, when I'm reading a book, I'm like, and how many times did you have to reread this after you read it? Like, it took me 2 months to read the son of a bitch, and how many times did you have to do it while you were writing it? You know, that's like, I reread and re-sing all my songs 1,000 times before anybody gets to see them. But like the author, they don't have that kind of time. Like, I guess that's where the editor comes in.
Yeah, I've never tried. I mean, I've got like a couple book ideas that I've been working on, but like I've not tried to write like a novel or anything. So that's, I don't know. It has to be commitment, and um, I don't know. Like, I feel like it's easy to get bored with stuff, and that's
Yeah.
kind of like sticking it out to like, this is a story I need to tell. I don't know.
Yeah, probably so. Like, it's just got to be a passion thing, and those guys are obviously like trained too. Like, when I think of like great novelists, it's like they knew what they were doing, and they had this just ability to put it down on paper, like as it comes out. Like, I have ideas for stuff like that all the time, but by the time I start picking up a pencil and trying to write it down, it's gone. It's like I can't write it down fast enough.
Yeah. Do you? I don't know. Do you ever feel like a song is bigger than a song, that you have to end up like, cutting down, not even just like lines, but like actual like verses, or we can't take it in this. I can't take it in this direction, because if so, it's going to be, so much longer.
Yeah, and I don't really edit myself as far as time goes very often, because we don't get played on the radio that much, and people don't buy singles anymore, and so uh, I let the song kind of just do its thing. But sometimes, yeah, like, I don't know, my songs really, they evolve from a tiny seed. It's like it's a line or a melody, and it evolves. I rarely know how a song's going to end when I start writing it. So it just kind of has to take its course. But a lot of times I'll have like 4 verses in a song, and I'll be like, well, this is a little long, so which one of these 3 verses is the shittiest one, and which one doesn't get the point across, or which maybe I'll combine 2 verses, which I do a lot actually, where I'll be like, I'll take the first 2 lines from this and the last 2 lines from the other one, and make it a better verse. And now we got a really good verse instead of 2 mediocre ones. And I'll do that a lot. But I don't know. I never really take time into consideration when I'm writing, just because they almost always end up with 3 verses in a chorus anyway.
This episode is brought to you by the Blue Light Live here in Lubbock, Texas. Obviously, the coronavirus pandemic has had a massive impact on the music industry and on our daily lives at large. The Blue Light has been closed for nearly 2 months now, and if you're like me, you're probably jonesing for some live music, perhaps a Lone Star beer or a round of burn shots from your favorite bartender. If you're truly missing the place, there are 2 things you can do. For starters, Lubbock songwriter Charlie Stout and 49 other songwriters have come together for a 50-song compilation called Monday Night Lights. It's 50 demo-style recordings for $50, where all the proceeds will be going to furloughed bar staff at Blue Light Live. All you have to do is head over to mondaynightlights.com. You'll be getting songs from the likes of Josh Abbott and Wade Bowen and William Clark Green, to up-and-comers like Slade Coulter and Morgan Rutherford, to Blue Light singer-songwriter competition winners like Juliet McConkey, Isaac Hoskins, and Kenneth O'Meara. You'll recognize a whole lot of people on this list, just too many to name right here. Trust me when I say you will want to get Monday Night Lights. It's just an incredible collection of incredible songwriters. There's also some pretty cool limited edition poster prints that Charlie has for sale on the site, where those proceeds will obviously be going to bar staff as well. And we will probably end up having some other cool items listed on mondaynightlights.com as well pretty soon. Again, mondaynightlights.com. We've already raised a good chunk of money so far. We're super proud of how this all came together, and proud of how many people have shared the compilation and everything. But as you know, more can always help And of course, head over to bluelightlubbock.com, click on the merch tab. They have koozies and t-shirts and caps. I swear, if you put on a blue light cap and a t-shirt, it almost feels like you're there if you close your eyes, especially if you've already thrown on the Monday Night Lights compilation. Okay, back to the episode.
You've done a whole lot of stuff with Next Waltz with Bruce, and you've been playing drums on stuff during Steamboat and stuff. I think that's kind of maybe surprised some folks. I guess, have you always been a drummer? Has that always been something that's interested you?
Yeah, it was my first instrument. My Uncle Gary was a drummer, and I started playing drums when I think I was about 6 years old. He gave me a set of old Slingerlands, and he sent me drum lessons because he lived several hundred miles away, but he mailed me like a cassette tape of him playing drums and like him explaining how to do it, and like 1, 2, 3, 4 and that type of stuff, and then handwritten notes of how to play drums. And that's how I learned how to play drums when I was just a kid. And I used to play in Dad's band, and it's my favorite thing to do. I love playing drums, and I'm not a very great drummer by any stretch. Like, I can play a swing and I can hold the beat down, but I love playing drums. And so whenever I get a chance, like, I play with Bruce quite a bit these days, and I think he was kind of shocked. He was like, I can't even remember how I got the first gig with him. I think Cody probably was just like, oh, Willie's a pretty decent drummer, he can play, and he gave me a shot. And I went and played for him. And then after the first time, he was like, man, you're like the singer's ideal drummer. You don't walk all over everybody. That's kind of the biggest compliment I get. If I get a compliment as a drummer, it's like, well, you just don't play much. So that's what I try to do. I just try to, play as little as possible. And like, all my favorite drummers are minimalists. And I don't get to play as much as I'd like to, because I really love playing. But I've got to play with Bruce lately, and played with Jamie Lynn a few times. Got a surprise gig with Ingram down in Key West, like 2 hours before the show. I went and played, and that was pretty fun. And at the end of the show, I was like, obviously didn't have any time to rehearse or anything, but I had a few endings that I crash landed. And afterwards, Jack was like, man, nice job. He's like, you're a pretty good drummer. And I was like, yeah, sorry, man, I think I butchered a couple of endings. And he goes, no, you butchered all of them. I was like, well, shit, man, give me more than 2 hours next time, and I'll tighten those babies up.
Yeah, I don't know, that's pretty funny. I was gonna ask you, have you sang and drummed at the same time? Is that more difficult? I don't know if it's any more difficult doing that than playing guitar. I don't play anything, so.
No, not for me, because I started playing drums when I was really young, and I was singing at the same time. So I'd never even remembered thinking it was a tough thing. It kind of happened naturally. Just, at least for me anyway. I don't know if it'd be hard for somebody else. Drums is weird because you got both hands and both feet working, and I think just singing on top of that is just one more thing. It doesn't really strike me as anything that's too tough, but some people are like, I can't believe you can do that at the same time. And I don't know, maybe it was just something that I did young enough to where it wasn't anything that I thought about, and it just happened naturally.
Yeah. Bruce has something special going with that Next Waltz stuff. I've always come away more impressed by the producing aspect and who he's been able to come in there and do collaborations with. And obviously you guys have done some of those. What's the I guess like the day of, like, when you go in there and work on something, how is that different than making like a record otherwise?
Man, that's a good question, because it's very different, because he does it really old school. His studio is it's out in the middle of nowhere, and the couple times we recorded out of his studio, you don't have headphones, and so like you sit around and you play the track, and then later on I'll redo the vocal, maybe, unless we got a good scratch vocal. But it's very old school, and it's all about the performance. It's all about the song. It has very little to do with the technical bullshit that everybody else tries to use to polish the turd these days. So it starts with a really good song and a good band, and then you lay down a good performance of the song, and that's what it's all about. It's not like, oh, we're gonna go in here and do this thing 15 times until we get it right, and then we're gonna overdub all this shit. And yeah, it's very old school. And Bruce is really good about knowing when you got it. Like, you do it 2 or 3 times, and sometimes you're like, oh man, I don't know about that. And he's like, no, that was the one. And then he's usually right. And he's kind of hardcore about it. Like, he's like, no, you're not doing another solo. Like, you're not gonna overdub anything. Like, that was the take, and that's what we got. So that's why it's so genuine and so real, because it's like they used to do it, when you just put a bunch of decent musicians in a room with a good song and let things just happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's so, what's so great about all of the videos and like the compilations have been where, you know, you have to appreciate that all these people have done those songs in one day. And there is that, obviously, that live room element, and there's just something really incredibly special about that. You know, I was out there a little bit whenever the Panhandlers were cutting that record, but I felt like that was even a little bit more different than the a quote unquote Next Waltz song, because that's, you know, when they were doing it, they were cutting a couple songs and working back and forth on different stuff, even though you're getting the same premise and vibe of the live room and everything.
Yeah, I think Bruce's whole thing is he gets guys and girls to come in and play that are worth a shit, you know. And like, when I played drums with him for the first time up in Steamboat, I kind of had a very vague idea of what the show was going to be like. It was basically a bunch of different artists coming in and playing songs, and I don't get to play drums enough to where I feel too comfortable with practicing first. And I was like, kept asking. I was like, man, can you just send me that list, or like some ideas of songs? And he sent me a few. But by the end of the day, like, when I got there, I understood why he didn't really ever send me anything, because it was like an artist would show up, they would pick a song, and we would run it a time or two, and then we would record it. And you end up with such great, honest performances when you do it that way, because, you know, you don't leave the best performance on the cutting room floor in the rehearsal room. You get that magic like the second or third time you cut it, sometimes the first time. And that's kind of how he does it. And that's how he does it at his studio for the Last Waltz. It's always, you get a lot of magic, because everything isn't over rehearsed and over produced and overdone. It's just like real live shit going down in real time.
Yeah. Another part like I love about that is, you know, I've talked to him about it, about about the song being so important too. And obviously,
Yeah.
like, I guess, like, you know, he's sent, you know, a couple of, hey, I think this would be a good song for y'all to cut. Cause, you know, it's not necessarily people doing their own songs during the Next Waltz. A lot of them are, you know, underrated cuts that he found on a record, you know, or that he's always thought was a great song that didn't get its proper shine, or whatever the case is. Obviously, like that, what I'm thinking of for y'all is y'all did that Guy Clark song, and it's on that first compilation. I guess, like, where did that song, when did that get part of the discussion?
That's a great example of how good Bruce is at doing that, is because he hollered at Cody or I or both of us and was like, you want to come out and do this? We're doing a Guy Clark thing. And my initial reaction was like, oh, well, we know LA Freeway and we have a pretty cool version of it. And let's do LA Freeway. And he was like, well, I was like, man, I think you guys ought to do something like Broken Hearted People. And I didn't know that song, so I had to learn it. But I was like, okay, cool. And it turned out to be like the perfect song for that session with that band. And I was like, well, I'll do it if Kelly comes and sings on it. He was like, I can probably arrange that. But no, he has a really good knack for that. Cause like, instead of us just like taking the easy way out and doing LA Freeway, like, you know, a song we already knew, he was like, how about you guys do Broken Hearted People? Cause he felt like that was a song for us to do. And I feel like it turned out really cool. We got Margie come down and play steel, and Bucka was on keys, and I don't know, there was a little bit of magic in there, and that's kind of what he does. Like, he's really good at that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of those other songs that I felt was just a great example of this was when Kevin Russell of Shiny Ribs and Kelly McQuee and I guess like it was I'm blanking on names. The guy from Band of Heathens, Quist.
Ed?
No, not
or
Ed.
Gordy.
Yeah, Gordy. They did that that old Grateful Dead song. They did what song was it? Broke Down Palace. And like I hadn't really.
Let's check that out.
Yeah, I definitely do. Because it's a song that it's not one that I was familiar with. Because like I know Grateful Dead stuff, but I know like the top layer. You know, just
right,
trucking and stuff. You know, like whatever every greatest hits kind of thing, right? And that right there was just like a magical kind of performance. You know, so it's I don't know. I just love what Bruce has been able to cultivate out there. You know, it's
yeah.
I think he's adding so much to the culture of a focus on performance and songs and artists. So
I think he got tired of listening to people that didn't know what the fuck they were doing go out and act like they knew what the fuck they were doing, you know. And he was like, you know what, I'm going to get good songs and good people to play them and show people that it's not about the production, it's about the performance, and it's about the song. And that's kind of the whole vibe that I get from doing that stuff with him. It's like, let's see what happens, you know. If I could sum it up in one phrase, like, that's kind of his whole deal. It's just like, yeah, let's get a good song and a good singer and a good band, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, be present in the moment, you know, that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was wanting to ask. I saw on Rolling Stone they had done a feature. They've been doing a series on, you know, how the coronavirus has been affecting musicians, and obviously the lack of shows and Instagram shows and stuff like that. I guess like the one that came out this week had a couple of things about y'all and the Braun brothers reunion, and I guess like with that, like right now we're in such a limbo area. How has that been? Where obviously you guys are artists, but you have your own festival. How has that affected? How has all this affected that aspect of where you guys are?
Man, it's tough. We're plowing ahead as if the Braun brothers reunion is still going to happen. You know, we don't know if it will or not because we have to just take it day by day like everything else. But I don't know. We're optimistic that we can still pull it off when the time comes and people will want to get out and go see some music and the bands will want to come up and it'll be safe to do it. You know, that's our big concern. If it's not safe to do it at that point, we're not going to do it. And we're going to pull the plug, I don't know, a month or so before if it comes down to it. But up until then, we're going to just kind of see what happens. But yeah, it's tough. Like, it's really tough as a band and as a, you know, quote unquote promoter as far as the BBR goes. You just don't know what's going to happen. Like, some states are opening up. We'll see how that works. Idaho has very few cases, but we don't want to be the guys to truck in hundreds of new cases for the festival if that's where we're at when the time comes. And we're just going to be safe about it and see what happens. Like, it's too early to make a call, and we're still hoping to pull it off because it's a big deal up here for the community, and it's a big deal for us financially, and all the bands have a great time. It's a really, you know, it's our big week of the year. We love it. Like, it's my favorite week of the year. So if we can do it, we're going to do it, but we're not sure. But it's basically a holding pattern. Like I say, we're in limbo, and it's shit changes every day. Like nobody can give you any solid advice on anything. So I think we're at the point where we kind of have to go with our gut on everything, because other than trusting the science and things that have happened in the past and the way things have gone, it's just like we just have to try to do what we think is right.
Yeah, it feels like, especially with things so in the future, you have to take it day by day. Yeah, I feel like you have to just like, you can't necessarily cancel it, and you can't say, hey, we're doing this 100%. It has to be a weird, awkward moment. I think like the most awkward and strange, surreal part of all this is realizing that like so many, like we just don't know what to do. Like the people in quote unquote charge don't know necessarily even how to handle this. It's such a strange feeling.
Yeah, and you can't really even blame too many people on it, because it's like nobody's ever had to really deal with this in our lifetime. So it's like, but it would be nice to get on the same page. Like, do we wear masks or don't we? Because you read one article and it's like, oh, it's not good or it's bad, or save them for the nurses and the doctors, and that sounds like a great idea. And then the next day they're like, oh, but you got to wear one on an airplane, and then don't wear one on an airplane because whatever the fuck, it's kind of,
yeah.
Can we just at least get some solid direction?
The protocol has like changed so much over the time of just it'll change it from one week to another, and it's frustrating.
It'd be nice if we were all rowing in the same direction at least,
right.
Even if it's the wrong direction.
Yeah, what I'm kind of reminded of is and this is going to be a weird analogy for it, but like at the end of Seven, the movie Seven, obviously like Brad Pitt's character is killed, Kevin Spacey, and like one of the guys up in the helicopter, like I think the final line of the movie or something is like, somebody call somebody, and it's like even that guy who's quote unquote in a position of power is saying, somebody call somebody, and we don't know who that somebody is.
What's in the fucking box?
Yeah, that's COVID-19 is in the box, and God,
it's a weird time, man. Like, and I'm kind of isolated from it. Like, we're up in Idaho, and there's only been 2 cases in our county, and that was 2 months ago. And we're still taking all the necessary precautions and trying to be safe and cool. And so, but I almost feel guilty about being up here, isolated from places where people are dying by the hundreds. It's crazy. Like I never thought about this particular situation. Like, I always pictured the apocalypse being very different. You know what I mean? Like, it's a very strange time. Like, you don't really know what to do.
Yeah. What I was talking with one of my buddies about it, right when it was initially like the quarantine and stuff like that was first being introduced, and it was one of those things where I said to him, it feels like we don't have like a protocol in order. I feel like we probably like our U.S. government has a protocol. If UFOs, aliens showed up tomorrow, we would have this is what a plan of action, and we don't have anything for this. Now, of course, like there's reasons for that I don't know if we need to.
Yeah, I don't even know how far into that you want to get, but it seems like somebody at one point had a plan for it. And somebody else fired all those people.
Yeah, you mentioned like the apocalypse, right? Like you pictured it being differently. It's weird because I feel like it's also one of those things too where I go, the apocalypse, like this is obviously real and it's horrible and it's a nightmare for a lot of people, but it's also like so much more boring than zombies or whatever the case is. It's such a, like I said, I come back to the word surreal because it's just been a weird thing.
It's very surreal, and like I've been up here for 2 months. Like in a couple days, it'll be 2 months to the day. And when I flew up here from Austin, I got on a plane, and like about 2 days before I got on that plane, I started getting kind of freaked out about it because the news was ramping up. It was right around St. Patty's Day. I think I flew up here on the 16th of March. But I was nervous as shit to get on an airplane, and there was only like 15 people on both flights, and I don't know. Like I got to Boise, I went into the store, I wore gloves, I got my shit as fast as I could, and I got out of there. And I've been up here for 2 months since then. I've sort of relaxed a little bit because just my geographic location is pretty safe. But I'm still, like, when I go to the store, I'm wearing gloves and all that kind of thing. But I feel like I'm in the best place on earth to be right now. I'm out in the middle of nowhere. But at the same time, I'm watching the news, and I've been keeping a journal. And when I got here, there was 5,000 cases in the States and 93 deaths. And that was 2 months ago, and I don't know where we're at now. We're at well over 1 million and 80,000 deaths or something, which that's 2 months. Like I look back at my journal entries and just go, holy shit, this thing escalated quickly.
Yeah. Early on, I was keeping up with the various websites that were tracking the numbers. And at some point, like, I was checking it basically once in the morning, once in the evening, seeing how they would come in. And at some point, I just stopped doing it because it was just getting like, holy shit. It's just, at some point, you almost, like, it's hard to fathom the numbers. It's hard to comprehend how many people that is, because like, a lot of people, but could you literally, like, I think, like, I was talking to a friend when we were up at like 500 people, and I was like, could you name 500 people right now? Like, you know what I mean? Like that, like, it's a very hard concept to think of, like, how many people that really is.
Well, and also, shit, to me, the biggest thing about this whole deal that puzzles me is that, like, I don't know, it says it's 12 or 13, or not 12 or 13, but 1.2 or 1.3 million people have been identified as having it. But how many people outside of that haven't been tested? Me personally, I think I had it because I was sick as shit right before I came up here. And I have a few people that I came into contact with that got diagnosed with it. So I don't know if I did or didn't have it, but I was sick as fuck. And I could be one of those people that already had it. And I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah,
like, the lack of testing is like, Jesus Christ, could we get some tests?
Yeah, so I have a buddy who works here at Texas Tech who is into public health. I guess he's got like a doctorate in sociology and stuff like that. So we've talked a lot about that, and a lot of people will point to how, like, China's numbers have to be off because they're lying about them. And granted, I go, yeah, 100%. Right. But our numbers are off too, and that's just due to lack of testing. So, like, it is very much it's very hard to understand exactly how far this is, because we, like, we don't have the number. We're not testing nearly enough to really understand how far spread this is. So it's just a complex thing, It's but at the same time, I feel like it's very black and white on the testing aspect. It's very black and white. So
I can't imagine why we haven't ramped up the capabilities to get testing. I mean, I don't understand why that's taken so long. But we're all fucking doctors now. That's the thing, is everybody you talk to has got an opinion, and they act like they graduated from medical school when they're telling you their opinion, myself included.
Oh no, I 100% agree. You have that one, the dude you went to high school with who posted on Facebook his opinion that is, and of course, like I say, you said, we're all doing the same thing. We're all doctors at this point with our opinions, but yeah, it is. I feel like some people's opinions are a little bit more valued, more
Well,
nuanced. Yeah.
yeah, there's certain people who you need to hear their opinions. And can we let them speak for a minute? Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Uh, Not to get too into it, but it's like, wow. Like, if we could just get a clear message, that would be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things where, and now, um, I've spoken on it a couple times during different podcasts, so that's why I've not really brought it up. But I'll let you know right here that I did test positive for COVID-19 back in March, and
No shit.
yeah, and it was but it was one of those situations where I nearly almost wasn't tested, so I could have
Did
been
you,
a lost t- case, you
what
know.
was it like? What were the symptoms?
So early on, it was so like the entire situation, the entire thing felt like a way more extreme version of the flu. Like it hit harder and it lasted so much longer as well. So like for about 5 days, it was aches and pains and chills and I just had like a massive headache and migraine, like where like the base of your head and where your neck come together, like that area.
Hmm.
Like I felt was strange was like my joints hurt so much, like my hip sockets were just killing me, and I had like a fever and a cough and stuff like that. I was probably running like 103. Um,
Wow.
but at the time I couldn't get tested because I didn't fit the criteria. I hadn't been
You
out of the
weren't old
country,
enough, huh? Yeah.
and I hadn't come in contact with anyone who was out of the country and stuff like that. So, and then for about a week after, uh, I was just so fucking tired, just fatigued, where I was
I
like sleep
sleep.
so long, and it was just like you just felt like you were in a haze, kind of lost, and you didn't know. I was kind of like, fuck you, am I ever gonna like not feel this fucking tired again,
I know that feeling where you're like, I can't imagine not feeling like this. Like, and I think, I'm not sure, but I think I might have had a mild case of it too, because in retrospect, I know some people that I was in contact with that tested positive for it,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't ever have the fever, but I was like achy and painy, and my voice went out for 3 shows in a row, which never happens. Like, knock on wood. And I'm not saying that I got like a superhuman voice, but like for me to have like no voice for 3 shows in a row is like very weird. And I felt like shit. And Cody had the same exact thing. Like, he was sick for 2 weeks, and I think I got it from him, or I gave it to him, or whatever. And I don't know. It was a very strange sickness, and it wasn't allergies, and it wasn't the flu, it wasn't a cold. It was just a very different sort of thing. And I've never had a fever, as far as I know, but I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if I found out that I already had it. I'm not saying I did, but I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like my grandmother had it, and that's who I got it from, and she had a very mild case, like nothing
Thank God.
even like. Yeah, I was. Everyone in the family was surprised. Like I had it, I got hit so much harder than her, and I was like, no, that's a good thing, guys, because like she didn't have a fever really. She had a cough, and I still have a cough. Like I've been muting my mic every once in a while to cough, and that's just something I'll
Yeah.
probably have for like 3 months or so. But she had a little bit of a cough and little achy pain kind of stuff, and that lasted for her for about a week, and then she just felt real tired for about a week as well. Just fatigued and.
Right.
Now she lost. I did too. I lost sense of smell and taste, and she did as well. And that's just
Oh,
one of
that,
those
yeah.
like
Wow.
insult to injury kind of feelings, because like you just I don't know, like that first week I didn't even know I couldn't smell or taste because I just felt so bad I wasn't fucking moving around. It wasn't like I was going around
Yeah.
sniffing candles or anything, and I wasn't eating much at all. So that wasn't really something I felt until the week after, and
Man,
or was
one of the
aware of.
first things I thought of when this thing started happening when I came up here was I'm almost relieved, and I hate to even say it, but like my grandma passed away last year, about a year ago, and I was kind of relieved that she passed last year's, because if she was still here today, I would never in a million years go to see her at risk of giving her the virus. And I was like, man, and her knowing that I was here and Gary was here and we didn't go see her, like, I don't think she could wrap her head around that, you know? And so I was like, almost like in a very strange way, relieved that she passed last year than not now. And I mean, shit, I hate to even say it, but you know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you mean, because it is a very, yeah, it sounds strange saying that, because like my grandmother and I, we had a similar conversation about her brother, who passed away back in the January before, where it was like, oh, you know, in a strange way, I feel glad that Uncle Chief passed back then, because he wouldn't have, this would have wiped him out, and it would have been, you know, just
Yeah.
a lingering kind of process, you know.
I don't know, she probably would have understood, but I would just have felt so bad being 30 miles away from her and not going to see her for her own safety, you know? Like that's what it all came down to. Was like, man, you know what? Thank God this happened this year and not last year. So, I don't know. Sounds weird to say.
Yeah. You know, that's the thing about all of this, the isolation, like, again, I was talking to my friend who's in public health, studies public health and teaches about all that kind of shit. And it's, you know, this is going to be studied for generations, decades, and not just the actual sickness part, the virus part. Yeah, that'll be studied, and we'll know all about that. But the mental pressure this is all put on everyone, how it's affected everyone's mental health and anxiety.
I can't imagine being
like
that alone in an apartment right now. You know, like I feel like I'm the luckiest guy on the face of the earth right now, because I'm out in the middle of a beautiful place. I'm already isolated because I don't have really any neighbors that are too close by. My only neighbors right now are my little brother Gary and his girlfriend, and we've been hanging out the whole time. And I've seen my mom and dad a few times. But like, I come up here and hang out by myself all the time. So this is pretty normal for me. Like, I have a pretty normal quarantine going on here. But I honestly can't imagine being in an apartment by myself for 2 months without going outside or talking to anybody, or I don't know. It's just, I feel most guilty for how good I have it. And I just hope everybody gets to do this thing, because I can't imagine being somewhere other than where I'm at right now. I like being where I'm at right now, and I'm having a good time, but this is going to be a hell of a lot tougher on a lot of other people.
Yeah, like you realize just how fortunate you are. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not stuck in a box in an apartment. You know what I mean? It's you know, I have a house in the city, and I have a, you know, backyard, front yard, and you know that you appreciate that so much more. The ability to just get out and even walk around. But the one thing it's really been eye opening to realize just how many of my friends need human interaction, like constantly. You know, like I'm pretty much I'm like you. I can kind of disappear and just be fine by myself. But just seeing how many people, this is torture for them in a lot of ways, just being by themselves and not having that interaction.
Yeah, man, I love being on my own. And like, if you would have told me a few months ago, like, you can go hang out in the middle of the desert for 2 months and not see anybody, I'd have been like, hell yeah. But once you actually do it, it's like, holy shit, man, I like people a lot more than I thought I did.
Yeah. For me, it's been a lot more conversations, phone calls. You know, it's
right.
And that's, you know, because I feel like specifically like the phone call, especially what I'm doing. It's been more podcasts doing like this, but it's just been phone calls with people too, and it feels like, you're actually talking about something. You're doing something that's not just like taking time, but like most of these conversations have been about something, and it's not just been small talk about the weather or whatever the case is. So it's I feel like that's been the way I've been passing time is phone calls and
Yeah, if all
talking
the
about people
telephone
stuff.
companies could go back to like charging you per minute, they would definitely have free
Oh, I know,
pocket.
right?
I spent more time on the phone and like even FaceTime. Like I've never FaceTimed in my entire life, and I've been FaceTiming Mickey because my niece lives with me when I'm in Austin. I haven't seen her in 2 months. Like I never thought I would miss a baby in my entire life, but man, that's what the thing I miss the most about this whole thing is like waking up every morning and having my niece there, and she's almost 2, and like I said, like I never in a million years thought that would be something that I would wake up and miss, but like I miss having her around, and I'm sure there's everybody out there has something like that, or maybe 10 people that they miss having around. It's a tough time. It's weird.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's I keep on going back to the word surreal because it just feels like if it just such a strange surreal feeling of life right now. I don't know.
I just hope it kind of takes us all into the next chapter with a new outlook on life, maybe a little more appreciation for the things we have. And I don't know, maybe people start valuing music again because of all the streaming that we've been doing, because we can't do concerts, or maybe people won't hate their job as much, or think their neighbor's not such a dickhead, like there's so many things that can come out of this that could be positive when you have to step away from all of that shit for 2 months, and God knows how much longer it's going to be. But this could end up being a pretty silver lining on a lot of levels, obviously not counting all the hardships that everybody has to endure, and the sick and the dying and all that. But at the end of the day, the skies are cleaner. We've got people that never probably thought that if you stopped driving on the freeway for 5 minutes that the sky would clear up. Then all of a sudden the sky is clearing up, and they're doing it faster than anybody ever thought it would. So I don't know. There's a few silver linings to take out of it, and that's not to say that the negative sides are worth it, but at least there are a few things to take out of this that might, moving forward, make us all better people.
Yeah, no, I agree. There is especially on the environmental aspect is, I feel like we've always been given the excuse of, well, we can't change the way we're living, and we're too far down that road, so we
Yeah.
should just keep on doing it. And it shows that like the humans are able to impact this world so much, obviously. But if we just take a little pause, like I feel like it shows that we're it's not it is reversible. It is we can have these impacts that are that help the world, that help the nature come back and all that kind of stuff. So maybe
I never would have thought that was a possibility to make it happen so fast. But you watch the like satellite images of Beijing or anywhere else really, and it's like, holy shit, man, this planet can heal itself a hell of a lot faster than we never thought it could. And I've always been on the page of trying to do that in the first place, but I don't know. It's an encouraging sight, especially when, like you said, like, well, we can't do that, or we can't stop driving on the freeway, or we can't make an impact. But you see what happened in 2 months, and it's like, holy shit, yes, we can.
Yeah. I know like there was a lot of photos of different places in India of where the smog had cleared so much that you could see the Himalayas for the first time in 50, 60 years or whatever, from
That's crazy.
X miles away. Yeah, it's just it's kind of it's amazing, It's there's that part. There's the hopefully like we appreciate, you know, truck drivers and people who stock stores and
Yeah.
teachers. I think I've seen a whole lot of like my mom was a teacher, and so like I've always had appreciation for education. I kind of come from a family of teachers and stuff, but I think it's shown a whole lot of people that teaching your kids is really really fucking hard. It's we had to go to doing homeschool forever after this. I think
my mom and I were joking about that the other day because my brothers and I were all homeschooled all the way through high school, and but I never took it for granted because when we were kids, like we learned our shit in 3 days a week, 6 months a year. Like it was way faster than normal kids, have to go to school 8 hours a day every day for the rest of their lives. And I don't think we got like the best education you could ever have, but we had a pretty goddamn good one. And we did it way faster. And when we were going to, instead of reading about like Mount Rushmore or reading about the Grand Canyon or reading about the, Arches National Park, we went there. And it was part of our growing up. It's like, that's what we did. And I don't know. I always felt like we got a pretty good education. We lacked in certain areas, especially science. But I don't know. When I see all these people homeschooling their kids, I'm like, goddamn, good for you. And I bet you 99% of them will come away with a huge appreciation for teachers. And that I think will be another great thing because, man, what a thankless job. Those guys, they don't get the credit that they are deserved.
Yeah. Some people think of them as babysitters, or you know what I mean. And of course, like there's always like, I feel like growing up in Texas, we've always had such a spotlight on coaches in football, and
right,
like that. There is something where like you do have that lazy history teacher, that English teacher, or whatever the case is, because they're a football coach or something like that. But like I feel still at the same time you're, and that's nothing against coaches or anything like that. But it's I think going through the school system, I obviously had those experiences every once in a while. So I don't know. Hopefully people come out of this and just a little bit more appreciation for every aspect of their normal life a little bit more. So.
Yeah, and you'll appreciate the people you never thought of. I guess teachers, of course, but the coaches even. Or I found a red cabbage at the grocery store the other day, and I was like, where the fuck did that thing come from? Like, it certainly wasn't growing around the corner, so somebody had to drive that thing here. And
absolutely, yeah.
The people picking up the garbage and all that, like just all the shit that happens every day, like clockwork that you never thought of, is all of a sudden people putting their lives on the line to go out and do that shit. So I really hope that people appreciate the fuck out of that.
Yeah. Everyone always, talks shit on the way like government institutions can't handle things, always bureaucracy and all that kind of stuff. But, they do a pretty good job of taking up the trash and fixing, even if they don't fix all the potholes. It's I feel like you realize that all that kind of stuff doesn't just happen by itself. So
yeah, that shit doesn't just happen.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, I don't know. I think that's a pretty good note to end on right there.
Right on, man. Well, thank you.
All right, thanks for listening. A huge thanks goes out to Willy Braun of Reckless Kelly for doing this. Be sure to check out American Jackpot, American Girls on May 22nd. Be sure to check out episode sponsors Blue Light, MondayNightLights.com, and Wicker's Jalapeno Jelly. Okay, I'll see you all Thursday for another episode.